You're listening to the I.O.U.S.A. live podcast with Mr. Dave Walker, former Comptroller General of the United States and currently President and CEO of the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. Mr. Walker, thank you so much for talking with us today about the documentary I.O.U.S.A., the U.S. national debt, and the upcoming one-night event on August 21st in theaters nationwide.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for being interested.
So you've been involved in the Fiscal Wake-Up Tour for some time now. How does the tour align with this film and the live panel discussion?
Well, the tour is one of the primary bases for the film. The film talks about America's four deficits: the budget deficit, the savings deficit, the balance of payments and trade deficit, and then the biggest deficit of all, the leadership deficit. And it follows the Fiscal Wake-Up Tour around the country. It also includes interviews from top experts as well as people on the street, some dynamite graphics, and some great historical footage.
So it sounds like there's a lot more to this issue than just the numbers.
Well, there's no question about it. In fact, one of the things we're really excited about is on the evening of August 21st, in addition to people being able to view the film in about 350 to 400 theaters nationwide, they'll be able to also be part of a live town hall meeting and a simulcast from Omaha, Nebraska, with Warren Buffett, with the head of AARP, Bill Novelli, Pete Peterson, myself, and Bill Niskanen, who was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors for Reagan. So that's an extra bonus, and I think people will really enjoy it.
This issue is very important to you, and you've been doing this tour. Why is it so important that every American needs to know about this issue?
If somebody cares about the future of their country, their children, and their grandchildren, then they'll watch this film. Because the simple but sad truth is, most elected officials are not telling the American people the truth, that the country's financial condition is worse than advertised, that we face large and growing structural deficits in the future, and that tough choices are going to be required. We're going to have to reform our Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid programs. We're going to have to reprioritize and constrain spending. We're going to have to change our tax code and generate more revenues. We're going to have to do a lot of things, and the sooner we do it, the better. And the American people are going to need to demand that their elected officials start taking steps to help make sure that our future is better than our past.
So Americans, beyond becoming an elected official and demanding that their officials listen to them, what are the most important things that the average American can start doing today to help?
Well, first thing is they need to become informed and involved, and they need to make sure that those that are in elective office at the federal level and those that want to be in elective office are pinned down on whether or not they understand this, whether or not they'll make it a priority, whether or not they're willing to make tough choices, because that's what we need. We need leadership. That's the biggest deficit that we have. In addition to that, Americans need to understand that they're going to have to assume more personal responsibility for their own financial future. Yes, Social Security and Medicare are going to be there in years ahead, but Medicare in particular is going to have to be restructured pretty dramatically along with our overall health care system. And if people don't want to end up paying double the taxes that they're paying today, which is what we'd have to do if we don't end up engaging in reforms, it means the government will be able to do some things, but not as much as it's doing now, and that means people are going to have to do more for themselves. And the sooner they recognize that reality and start making plans accordingly, the better off they're going to be.
And as I understand it, young people are really the ones that need to be paying attention because by the time these problems arise, they'll be the ones that are in positions of power and are taking care of everything. So can you tell us some more about how young people can help, what they need to be doing now to get informed?
Well, young people are going to end up paying the price and bearing the burden if tough choices aren't made sooner rather than later. Just to give you a sense, if we don't end up reforming our Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid programs, if we don't end up reprioritizing and start constraining spending, then young people could end up paying double the amount of taxes that people are paying today. What's going on today, quite frankly, is a massive taxation without representation. Today's taxpayers are being benefited from low tax, high spend policies, and they're passing on the bills to tomorrow's taxpayers, who will end up bearing a huge burden. Unfortunately, young people historically have not been as politically active as more senior Americans, and as a result, they've been able to be taken advantage of, and that needs to stop.
Mr. Walker, how do you think the movie and the live panel are going to impact both young people and old people, Americans in general? How is it going to impact, especially the live panel with where people can ask questions, everything else? Can you give us a sense of what you hope to have achieved?
We hope that the film will be able to help many more Americans understand the nature and magnitude of the challenges that we face, the importance of making tough choices, the prudence of doing it sooner rather than later, and the consequences to our country, to our children and grandchildren if we don't. The panel, I think, will end up being the icing on the cake because in addition to being able to view this very powerful film, you'll be able to hear directly from some of the nation's leading experts and be able to ask questions to them to try to be able to see what their perspectives are on some of these issues and what's the possible best way forward to make sure that we do the right thing going forward.
Great. Okay, well, we're going to go to some questions from callers, and I guess we'll just go ahead and go right into caller number 1.
Hey, my name is Julianne. I'm 16, and my question is I hear about the recession a lot on TV and the radio, and I was wondering if that has anything to do with the national debt.
Well, the national debt is an accumulation of all the past deficits, net of the surpluses that have occurred through the passage of time. So it's an accumulation of deficits. Recessions tend to result in a number of things, 2 in particular. 1, reduced revenues as compared to what otherwise would occur, and number 2, increased government spending. Therefore, if you're in a deficit situation, higher deficits. That means more debt. And that's how recessions can end up impacting the debt because typically, with less revenues and more spending, you'll run larger deficits, you'll accumulate more debt, and that is what the interrelationship will be.
Okay, on to caller number 2.
Derek Brown, 18 years old. I'm just curious about how you think we got to this point and how you think we can fix it.
For many years throughout the history of the United States, we followed the advice of the Founding Fathers. We were prudent about our financial affairs. We only ran deficits and accumulated debt burdens when we were at war, when we faced a major depression, or some serious national challenge. And then, after that challenge had passed, we would end up doing everything we could to lessen the debt loads in order to make sure that we weren't encumbering future generations with those burdens. But starting in the 1980s, both America and too many American families became addicted to debt. They started to regularly spend more money than they made, take on more debt, mortgage the future. You can do that for a little while. You can't do it forever. And as an individual, people can't pass on debts to their children or grandchildren. But as a country, you do, and that's what we're doing. In particular, things got a lot worse in 2002 when the budget controls that existed that helped take the country from deficits to surpluses in the 1990s expired. And when those budget controls expired, Washington totally lost control. A combination of dramatic spend increases in entitlement programs, tax cuts, and unfunded war spending. These and other actions just totally caused us to lose our way.
Great question, caller 2. Great. Well, I think that's all the caller questions we have. Mr. Walker, we really appreciate your time and you being on the podcast with us today and giving us a better idea of what we're going to see at the I.O.U.S.A. documentary and also sort of fleshing out some of these issues. Again, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to all the callers who called in, and we look forward to watching the documentary and the panel afterwards on August 21st.
Thanks for your interest and efforts. Take care.
Thanks.